This is the Dive Into Discovery podcast, where curiosity meets insight, and every conversation uncovers a new layer of understanding.
Okay, so let's imagine like history's greatest aha moment, right? Forget the light bulb I'm talking about. The moment someone realized, hey, I can plant these seeds and they'll actually grow food. Like that's the essence of agriculture's origins. And you sent over a stack of articles and notes because like many of us, you're curious about where and when this all began.
Yeah, it's a question that has fascinated people like for centuries. Most of us learned about the Fertile Crescent, being the birthplace of agriculture. But your research suggests that the story might be a bit more complicated than that.
Right, the Fertile Crescent with its wheat, barley, sheep, and goats, that's the classic narrative. But then you start digging deeper and suddenly there's evidence suggesting that agriculture might have popped up in multiple places around the world, maybe even earlier than we thought.
Absolutely. It's like separate societies on different continents. They were all experimenting and figuring this out, almost simultaneously.
Okay, so let's start with the Fertile Crescent. What made this region so special for early agriculture?
Well, it's important to remember that the end of the last ice age dramatically changed the climate in this region. The Fertile Crescent, which spans parts of modern-day Iraq, Syria, Israel, and Turkey, became warmer and wetter, which created like the perfect conditions for growing crops, like wheat and barley. It wasn't always a fertile paradise. Climate change played a big role.
Wow, so climate change actually helped jumpstart agriculture.
It did.
And speaking of wheat, your research suggests that it plays a pretty significant role in this whole story. Why is that?
Well, wheat was one of the first crops domesticated in the Fertile Crescent, and it quickly spread throughout Europe and Asia, becoming a dietary staple for many civilizations. You could say it was a key ingredient in shaping human history.
Okay, so we have the Fertile Crescent with its wheat revolution, but then your research takes us to China. What's going on over there?
Around 9,000 years ago, we see evidence of rice cultivation in China. And get this, it was happening in two distinct areas with two different methods. You have wet rice cultivation in the Yangtze River Valley and dry rice cultivation in the Yellow River Valley.
That's incredible. It's like they were adapting their farming techniques to fit the unique environments of each region.
Exactly. Early farmers were remarkably observant and innovative. They weren't just passively reacting to their environment. They were actively shaping it to produce food in diverse and ingenious ways.
And then there's Mesoamerica, which seems to be another hotspot for early agriculture. What were they cultivating over there?
Around the same time as rice cultivation was taking off in China, Mesoamerican farmers were cultivating corn beans and squash. What's fascinating here is that these three crops, when grown together, create a nutritionally complete diet. This isn't just about growing food, it suggests a deep understanding of plant properties and nutrition. It's like they cracked the code for a balanced diet thousands of years ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're seeing evidence that challenges the idea of a single origin of agriculture. We have the Fertile Crescent, China, and Mesoamerica all developing agriculture independently. But your research didn't stop there, did it?
You're absolutely right. The story gets even more interesting when we look at New Guinea. Around 10,000 years ago, they were cultivating taro, bananas, and yams, a completely different set of crops than what we see in the Fertile Crescent, China, or Mesoamerica. This suggests a totally independent development of agriculture.
Wait, so we're talking about at least 4 different regions where agriculture emerged independently. That's starting to sound like a global agricultural revolution.
Precisely. It's like there was this wave of agricultural innovation sweeping across the planet, with different societies experimenting and figuring out how to cultivate the plants best suited to their unique environments.
And your research also touches on the Andes with their potatoes, Africa with sorghum and millet, and even the Amazon basin with something called terra preta. What's that all about?
Terra preta, or fertile black earth, is evidence of a sophisticated form of agriculture practiced by indigenous peoples in the Amazon. They were essentially enriching the soil with charcoal and other organic matter, creating these incredibly fertile areas that could sustain crops for centuries. It's like they were masters of soil management long before modern agricultural science.
So it's multiple origins, diverse crops and techniques.
Right.
But then we come across something that really throws a wrench into the timeline. Göbekli Tepe. This site in Turkey, with its massive stone structures, predates known agriculture by thousands of years. How does that fit into everything we've been talking about?
Göbekli Tepe is a true enigma. It challenges our assumptions about the relationship between agriculture and organized society. Did farming inspire these monumental structures, or was it the other way around? It's a question that archaeologists are still grappling with.
So are we saying that complex societies might have existed before the development of agriculture? That really flips the script.
It's a possibility we can't ignore. Göbekli Tepe forces us to reconsider our understanding of early human development. The path to civilization might not have been as linear as we once thought. It's a real archaeological puzzle.
And this is all so fascinating. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the impact of this agricultural revolution. Even with all this independent innovation, the shift to agriculture must have had some pretty significant consequences, right?
Absolutely. It wasn't just about new food sources. It transformed the way humans lived and interacted with each other and the world around them. The adoption of agriculture had a ripple effect that touched every aspect of human society.
So what kind of changes are we talking about?
We're talking about the shift from a nomadic lifestyle to settled villages, a population boom, specialized jobs, and the development of complex social structures. It was a complete transformation of human existence.
And I'm guessing not all of the consequences were positive, right? Your research mentioned some potential downsides to this shift towards agriculture.
You're right. While agriculture brought many benefits, there were also challenges. For example, early farmers often had less diverse diets than their hunter-gatherer predecessors, leading to potential health issues. We see evidence of malnutrition and disease in some early agricultural communities.
Which is interesting because it ties into some of the concerns we have today about monoculture crops and the lack of diversity in our modern food systems. It seems like those ancient challenges are still relevant today.
Absolutely. It highlights the fact that we're still living with the legacy of this agricultural revolution, both the good and the bad. It's not just ancient history. It continues to shape our world in profound ways. It's fascinating to think about how this seemingly simple act of planting a seed led to such a profound shift in human history.
It really is. And speaking of profound shifts, your research highlights the development of trade networks as a major consequence of the agricultural revolution. Can you elaborate on that?
Of course. As agriculture led to food surpluses, people could specialize in other crafts and trade their goods for food. This exchange of goods and ideas spurred innovation and cultural exchange.
So agriculture essentially laid the groundwork for a more interconnected world.
Precisely. Think about it. We start to see evidence of long-distance trade routes connecting early agricultural communities. They were exchanging pottery tools made of obsidian, even luxury items like shells and precious stones. This trade didn't just facilitate the movement of goods, it also led to the spread of ideas, technology, and even religious beliefs.
It's amazing to think about how those early trade networks were connecting people and cultures across vast distances. But earlier we talked about some of the downsides of the agricultural revolution. You mentioned the potential health issues associated with less diverse diets. What other challenges did early farmers face?
Well, remember, early agriculture was very much a trial and error process. Farmers had to contend with unpredictable weather pests and diseases that could wipe out entire crops. Not to mention the challenges of storing and preserving food surpluses, which could be susceptible to spoilage or even worse, theft.
It really makes you appreciate the stability and abundance we often take for granted in our modern food system.
It does, but it's important to remember that even today, agriculture is vulnerable to many of those same challenges, especially in the face of climate change and other global pressures.
That's a good point. So we've talked about the impact of agriculture on trade, the challenges early farmers faced. What other fascinating insights can we glean from studying the origins of agriculture?
One of the most exciting areas of research is genetic analysis. By studying the DNA of ancient crops and animals, we can trace their lineage and understand how they were domesticated. It gives us incredible insights into the process of artificial selection, which is how humans essentially shaped the plants and animals we rely on today.
It sounds like a detective story. But with DNA as the clues, what are some of the things we've learned from this genetic detective work?
One fascinating discovery is that many of the crops we consider essential today originated from relatively small geographic areas. For example, every single variety of corn we have today, from sweet corn to popcorn, can be traced back to a single wild ancestor called Tisinte, which grew in what is now Mexico.
Wait, so all that diversity in corn came from one wild grass? That's incredible.
It really highlights the power of artificial selection. Over thousands of years, humans carefully selected and bred plants with desirable traits, gradually transforming them into the crops we know today. It's like a slow-motion evolution guided by human hands.
That's mind-blowing. And I'm guessing the same process happened with domesticated animals.
Absolutely. Take dogs, for example.
No.
All modern breeds of dogs, from tiny Chihuahuas to massive Great Danes, descended from a common wolf ancestor.
So there seems to be this pattern, a few key species domesticated in specific regions, then spreading throughout the world, evolving and diversifying along the way.
You've hit the nail on the head. It raises an intriguing question. Why did agriculture emerge in certain places and not others? What factors made some regions more conducive to the development of agriculture?
That is a great question. What's the answer?
Well, as we discussed earlier, climate plays a major role. The end of the last ice age created favorable conditions for agriculture in many parts of the world, but other factors contributed as well. For instance, the availability of suitable plants and animals for domestication, the presence of water sources for irrigation, even the lay of the land, its topography, all played a part.
So it sounds like a perfect storm of conditions had to come together for agriculture to take root.
Exactly. And even when those conditions were right, there were likely many failed attempts before humans successfully domesticated plants and animals and established sustainable agricultural practices.
So it wasn't just about being in the right place at the right time. It also took perseverance, ingenuity, and maybe even a little bit of luck.
You could say that. And let's not forget about the role of cultural factors. The willingness to experiment, the sharing of knowledge across generations, even spiritual beliefs about nature, these all likely played a role.
We've gone from this simple idea of planting a seed to this incredibly complex web of factors that shape the course of human history.
It's true. And we're still unraveling this complex web. New discoveries are constantly challenging our assumptions and deepening our understanding of the origins of agriculture. It's a journey that takes us back to the roots of civilization and offers valuable insights into our relationship with the natural world.
I'm so glad we went on this journey together. What an incredible deep dive it has been. And we're not done yet. In Part 3, we'll explore the ongoing search for the origins of agriculture and what lessons we can learn from this ancient revolution. Welcome back to our deep dive into the origins of agriculture.
It's been quite a journey so far, hasn't it?
It really has. We've traveled from the Fertile Crescent to China, to Mesoamerica and beyond, shattering that myth of a single origin for agriculture and uncovering this incredible diversity of early farming practices.
What's remarkable is that this journey of discovery is far from over. Archaeologists and scientists are constantly unearthing new evidence that sheds light on this pivotal chapter in human history.
It's like we're piecing together this giant jigsaw puzzle, with each new discovery revealing another fascinating piece of the story.
And with advancements in technology like DNA analysis and radiocarbon dating, we're able to create a much more detailed and nuanced picture of how agriculture emerged and spread.
So what are some of the big questions that researchers are still grappling with?
Well, one of the key areas of debate is the exact timing and location of the earliest instances of agriculture. We've discussed evidence suggesting that it may have developed independently in multiple regions, but pinpointing those precise origins is still a challenge.
It's like trying to find the very first spark that ignited a global wildfire.
That's a great analogy. Another area of ongoing research is understanding the motivations and drivers behind this transition to agriculture. Was it a gradual process driven by necessity as populations grew and wild food sources became scarce? Or was it a more deliberate choice, perhaps influenced by changes in social structures or even spiritual beliefs?
It makes you wonder what was going through the minds of those early farmers, what their lives were like, and what ultimately led them to make such a dramatic shift in their way of life.
These are questions that archaeologists and anthropologists are trying to answer by studying the artifacts, the settlements, and even the skeletal remains of these early agricultural communities. They're piecing together clues about their diet, health, social structures, and even their religious practices, trying to paint a more complete picture of this transformative period.
It's like we're time travelers peering into the past, trying to understand the very foundations of our modern world.
And what's truly fascinating is that studying ancient agriculture isn't just about understanding the past, it also offers valuable lessons for our present and future.
Now that's intriguing. Tell me more.
For instance, understanding how early farmers adapted to different environments and managed their resources can provide insights into sustainable agricultural practices that are still relevant today.
So we can actually learn from the successes and failures of those early agricultural pioneers.
Absolutely. Take the practice of terra preta in the Amazon, or the intricate irrigation systems developed by ancient civilizations. These offer valuable insights into soil management, water conservation, and biodiversity preservation techniques that we can adapt and apply to modern agriculture.
It's amazing to think that we can look to the past for solutions to the challenges we face in the present.
And it doesn't stop there. By understanding the genetic history of our crops and livestock, we can work to improve their resilience to diseases, pests, and the impacts of climate change, which is incredibly important as we face the growing challenge of feeding a global population in a rapidly changing world.
This deep dive has completely changed my perspective on agriculture. It's not just about putting food on the table. It's about this complex interplay of history, culture, science, and innovation.
The origins of agriculture is a testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and resilience. And by continuing to explore this fascinating chapter in our collective story, we gain a deeper appreciation for our past and perhaps a clearer vision for a more sustainable future.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the origins of agriculture.
The pleasure was all mine.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep learning.
What did you think of this week's episode? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to join us next time as we dive even deeper. And as always, stay curious, because you never know what discoveries are just around the corner.